Welcome to Against the Spread, where we here at Sportsnet pick NFL games for you against the spread. It's a later edition than normally because, well, games are happening all over the place and it's been pretty fluid. So we're going to try our best to make these picks early, knowing that some of these games may or may not happen when they're currently scheduled. But that's just what has made 2020 a unique and somewhat fun year of picking, Gilo, safe to say?
Fun is definitely one word for it. Chaotic is what
Yeah,
what
sure.
I would call it. But yeah, sure, let's go with fun.
Yeah, I just find it fun that I'm getting some Tuesday night football, some Wednesday
True,
night
yeah.
football
I mean,
randomly.
more football throughout the week, I'm all for.
Yeah. Let's start with a game that's supposed to start on Sunday. Jacksonville going to Minnesota. Two teams going in relatively different directions. But the spread's still pretty big. Vikings 9.5 points at home. Who do you like in this one?
The Jags are a bit of a mess right now. Obviously, they've lost 11 straight since that surprise week one win over the Colts. And now they don't have a general manager. And it seems like Doug Marrone is basically just a dead man walking on the sidelines. But they've been a good bet as underdogs over the last month. And we saw that this Sunday when they covered against Cleveland. They're 3-1 against the spread in their last four games, and that's all as underdogs of at least 7 points. So while I fully expect the Vikings to be able to win this game, we even saw this past weekend that the Vikings, aren't the best bet to cover bigger spreads, and they just ended up eking out a win over the Panthers. So with all that in mind, I'm going to take Jacksonville on a big spread with two teams that aren't the most predictable, but we've seen a better trend from the Jags.
I'm going to take the Jags as well. It's way too many points. I think, given the fact that Minnesota has had a much better month than the start of the season, people are overreacting a little bit, but I think Jacksonville will be able to keep it closer than that. I actually think, in terms of people overreacting to what's happened recently, that's a factor in our next line. The New Orleans Saints going to Atlanta. Even though they're on the road, the Saints are 3-point favorites in this one. And again, I think this spread is pretty close because Atlanta has played much better of late. Is that too close of a line, considering the difference of records in the two NFC South teams?
It's definitely a bit of a head scratcher for sure. But I remember last week when we talked about the Saints or the Falcons story being slight underdogs to the Raiders. And look what happened in that game. I mean, they just completely destroyed the Raiders. But the Saints are not the Raiders. And I think we just need to look back to 2 weeks ago when New Orleans absolutely dominated this Falcons team. A performance defensively that included 8 sacks and a couple of turnovers. And New Orleans easily won 24-9. So, this is in Atlanta, but I don't think that makes much of a difference to me. So I think this is great value for the Saints, and I'm all in on them this week.
Yeah, I mean, they had what was pretty much a preseason game coming into this, playing the Denver Broncos with no NFL caliber quarterback. This line started at 3.5. It's moved to 3. If it keeps moving in this direction, I would jump on it. But I'm comfortable with where it is right now at 3. I like the Saints to cover this very easily. Another game that is a 3-point line. The Detroit Lions go to Chicago. Detroit with some new decisions in their front office and their sidelines as they've made some moves given their terrible record once again. Goodbye to Matt Patricia, as we've talked often about when will he be unemployed. Well, we finally got to that point. Matt Nagy might be in the unemployment line soon if his Bears and that offense specifically doesn't perform better. Line started at -4 for the Bears. It's now -3. Game Chicago certainly can't afford to lose if they want to keep their playoff hopes alive. Who do you like in this one?
I don't like either of these teams. My notes on this game is throw this game into the ocean because I don't really want anything to do with this game. But with it being in Chicago, we're getting into a time where the weather is worsening. I'm going to lean with Chicago. I'm going to take the home dog or the home favorites because of that. But I am a bit weary of the Lions with a team that just recently got their coach and GM fired. I do wonder whether there's a little manager or coach firing bounce here. So I will say it with that caveat, but I do think the Bears can win at home against the Lions team. The last time we saw them just got completely dominated.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're both two bad teams, or two teams certainly that struggle mightily on one side of the ball. And I do think you could see a bounce just because Matt Patricia isn't there to look somewhat annoyed on the sideline with a pencil in his ear. And the move to Trubisky, which was hopefully going to give the Bears and that offense a bounce, hasn't happened. Changing who's calling plays hasn't given that offense a bounce, whether it's Matt Nagy or Bill Lazor. So that hasn't happened. There aren't really many more cards for the Bears to play at this point. And last week was the first time since week 3 that they rushed for over 100 yards as a team. They struggled mightily running the ball, and they're so one-dimensional offensively that I do think the Lions could win this one outright because I think these teams are relatively even. They're both not very good. So I'll in that case take the points, and I'll go with Detroit. NFC South matchup, another 3-point spread. That is the number of choice this week. The Colts on the road going to Houston are favored by 3. Who you got in this one?
The Colts on Sunday against the Titans, a game we thought would be closer than it actually was, were outmuscled in every sense of the word. I think that was a big wake-up call for the Colts against a Titans team that plays super physical all the time. But the difference with this game is the Texans just aren't physical, and they're not going to get beat off the ball like they were against the Titans, literally beat off the ball. And now the Texans are playing without their number 1 receiver in Will Fuller, who had a huge game on Thanksgiving and now has been suspended for 6 games. I think Deshaun Watson, who's playing probably the best football of his career, will find a way to keep this game relatively close. But in my mind, the Colts are a far superior team, and I think they should be able to win this game by at least a field goal, if not more.
Yeah, I mean, Will Fuller's absence is big. I think the only real mitigating factor is, they're used to not having Will Fuller because at some point every year he's hurt for an extended period of time.
In the past, though, they've had DeAndre Hopkins. So
this is very true.
This is the biggest factor now.
This is very true. I do like them much more under Romeo Crennel than I have under Bill O'Brien. They're 4-3 since Crennel took over, and they don't necessarily have to win this game. They just have to keep it close, and I do think they will. So I'm actually going to take the points. I'm going to roll with Houston at home in this one. All right, no more tight spreads. We're talking big numbers now, double digits. The Cincinnati Bengals go to Miami, 11.5 points are the Dolphins' favorite. It wasn't that long ago we were talking about the Dolphins being 11.5-point dogs. Now they're favored by that much. They're out of the outhouse and apparently into the penthouse. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, it's consistently we'd see the Dolphins as, double touchdown underdogs, but now, how the tables have turned. When it comes to the Dolphins, I mean, whether it's been Fitzpatrick or it's been Tua, they've been incredible against the spread in their last 10 games. They're 8-2, and I think they're 4-1 against the spread at home this season. But the Bengals have also been the team that have hung around in games. They scored a 7-3 record against the spread in their last 10. That said, that was with Joe Burrow, so he kind of had that ability to keep them hanging around. But we saw they did it against the Giants last week. So the Bengals are kind of a team that's able to hang around in games. And for that reason, I'm going to take the Bengals. That's just too many points for me. There's too many ways in which the Bengals late in the game, like they did against New York, can get within the 11.5. And so I'm going to take the Bengals, who have been plucky with or without Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm more surprised by, that the Dolphins are 7-4 this year, or that the Bengals are 7-4 against the spread. They have played teams really close. They have been in a lot of games, and they have been, an upset alert late into the 1 o'clock hour. It seems like almost every week. And so I don't know if they'll push the Dolphins so much so that they're going to upset them, but I don't think they're going to get blown out. And so I'll comfortably take the Bengals with the 11.5 number. Cleveland goes to Tennessee. I don't really have a great read on either of these teams. I probably trust Tennessee a little bit too much and probably don't trust Cleveland enough. That said, the spread is 6 for the Titans at home. Who do you like in this one?
This is an interesting one for sure. But I think we've seen a bit more consistency from the Titans recently with wins over the Ravens and that blowout of the Colts. But when it comes to the Browns, they've won 3 straight, 4 of their last 5. But I didn't really hesitate taking the Titans here, and that's for 2 reasons. Cleveland hasn't been good against the spread over the last 6 weeks. They're just 1-5. Now, they've been favorites most of those games, but the fact still stands against the spread. They're not great. But the more important factor is the Browns just don't fare well against teams that are going to try to out-physical them. And that's, like I said earlier when we talked about the Colts, that's exactly what the Titans do. And they're going to try and push the Browns around. I think they're going to succeed. In the 3 games that the Browns have lost, that's exactly what's happened, and they've lost by mostly big margins. So I like the Titans to be able to exact their game plan in this game and use Derrick Henry to build a big lead and hold on to it. So I'll take the Titans by 6. I'm feeling that with them at home.
Yeah, I struggle with this one. I don't feel great about it either way. Line opened at 3.5, and if the number was 3.5, I was like, okay, sure, Tennessee. Then it ballooned to 6. I'm like, oh, do I still feel that strongly about Tennessee? Ultimately, the answer is yes. And really, I still feel that strongly about Derrick Henry and the combination, the run and run, play action, fake option that they've had since Tannehill, was in the backfield beside Henry, which is week 7 of last season. Derrick Henry leads the league in yards. He leads the league in touchdowns, and he leads the league in runs over 20 yards. Like their combination has made that offense elite, which is not something that I thought I would say about not only a Tannehill-led offense, but Derrick Henry early in his career was boom or bust. Now he's been really, really consistent, and so it's for that reason I think Tennessee can win this one. But watch that number closely, because if it gets too much bigger than 6, then I would lean heavily the other way, because Cleveland can run the ball as well. So the Las Vegas Raiders go to the New York Jets. 8 points is the spread, which I could have seen it being much bigger than this, but it's probably just about right. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, given the fact that the Raiders, after their best game of the season in that loss to the Chiefs on Sunday night, went to Atlanta and laid a complete egg, I understand why this spread might be a little bit closer than it would have initially been if they had even been competitive against Atlanta. And it's that reason, what we saw from the Raiders on Sunday, that I'm going to take the Jets here. I know it's kind of insane, but a couple weeks back, I took the Jets and they covered. And it just felt like in my gut, there's just not enough to trust the Raiders right now. I need to see more to be able to consistently pick them as a favorite as big as this. And so I'm going to take the Jets reluctantly. I mean, really, this is a game I'd probably steer clear of if we weren't picking every game. But at this point in time, I'll take the Jets and the points.
Las Vegas is coming off their largest loss in the last 6 seasons. So I feel like they're primed for a big bounce back game. But you talk about reasons to trust the Raiders and having less of them. I have none, 0 reasons to trust the Jets, whether it's Sam Darnold, their quarterback, allegedly, or Joe Flacco, their quarterback, really when they played their best offensive football, which is not saying that much. Or Adam Gase, who's like weirdly and awkwardly being caught in lies and post-game press conferences about who is and isn't calling the plays. Like that entire organization is a bit of a mess. And I made the mistake of not trusting my better judgment and overthinking it and picking the Dallas Cowboys to be someone other than the Dallas Cowboys.
I was wondering how long it was going to take until we got to that, but here we are.
Yeah, no. I still haven't forgiven myself. But I'm certainly not going to make the mistake in terms of the New York Jets and overreact to a bad week of football by the Raiders. So I'm going to take the Raiders. The other team in New York certainly not playing great football either. Both organizations are wondering if they need to make a coaching change, I'm sure. Another big spread. The Giants are 10-point underdogs going to Seattle at 4:05 Eastern. Who do you like in that one?
Well, I guess the difference between the two New York teams, despite their records, is the fact that the Giants are leading their division right now. So,
True.
As ridiculous as that sounds, it's the truth. They've got a shot. This is going to be an interesting one to watch, I think, because of the injury to Daniel Jones. And it sounds like he's going to miss this with a hamstring strain. And so in comes Colt McCoy, a name I thought I'd never say again in an NFL pick video. But I actually don't think outside of Daniel Jones using his legs to make plays that there's much of a drop in the quarterback play there. I think the fact that McCoy has experience is going to help. But that's not the reason I'm going to pick the Giants. I'm going to pick the Giants for two reasons, and it comes down to records against the spread. First off, the Seahawks are just 2-5 over their last 7 as favorites, including that backdoor loss to the Eagles on Monday night, which lit the internet on fire. Secondly, the Giants are 7-2 against the spread this season as underdogs and have covered their last 6 as dogs. So when I look at a spread like this one, it's not a small one. It's not 3 points. So 10 points is big. And for a Giants team that has consistently covered as underdogs, it kind of made the decision an easy one for me. And so I'm going to take the Giants.
I agree. I'm going to take the Giants. I thought the point you made about Colt McCoy in terms of throwing the ball not being all that different than Daniel Jones is probably correct. And look at the line to me, which is instructive in terms of what Vegas really thinks, and then look at where the line is more instructive as to what the public thinks. And the line opened at 7.5, and it quickly moved to 10. And I think 7.5 is probably about right. So giving you 2.5 or so room to play, I think is real nice. I like the Giants at this number at 10. And we go back to the short lines in the 3-point games. This one actually started as a pick-em. Maybe people are starting to overreact to the fact that the Rams really, really looked bad last week in Week 12. The Los Angeles Rams go to the Arizona Cardinals. The Rams are favored by 3, which is somewhat surprising to me. Arizona, the home dog. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, this is an interesting one because the NFC West has been not only the best division in football, but as a result, probably one of the most impossible divisions to pick, because when they play each other, there's just completely backward results, like we saw with the 49ers beating the Rams last week. But these teams have yet to play each other, so I went back and looked at their recent record, and the Rams have won 6 straight against the Cardinals, and they've done it in pretty convincing fashion. And while I don't expect it to be a convincing win for the Rams, I'm going to take the Rams here because I like the defensive matchup for LA. I think the corners, the pressure that they can get with Aaron Donald and the other pass rushers works really well against Kyler Murray. And that offense, especially when it looks like Kyler Murray is either not playing his best football or is a little banged up after taking a hit to the shoulder 2 weeks ago against Seattle. So I like the Rams here, and it's mainly because the defense matches up well.
Yeah, and I'm really fascinated to watch, DeAndre Hopkins go head-to-head with Jalen Ramsey for 4 quarters. But the interesting thing with this matchup is, that's not something that's going to be new or off-putting for Hopkins, because they were not too long ago in the same division when Ramsey was in Jacksonville and Hopkins was in Houston. So I'm actually going to take the points. And I do think Arizona at home specifically can cover and can play well. And the NFC West has been a bit of a mess, and the Rams have a 1-game lead on the Cardinals. So it would just make sense that by the end of the year, we've got like a 3-way tie at the top of the division with Seattle, with the Rams, and with Arizona. So I think Arizona keeps it close, and I wouldn't be surprised if at home they win outright. All right, we couldn't put this off any longer. We had to talk about your Philadelphia Eagles. And I suppose your quarterback for now, Carson Wentz, or will Jalen Ramsey be your quarterback? Doesn't matter. Either way, they're going to one of the greatest QBs in the history of the game, and Aaron Rodgers as 9.5-point underdogs as Philly travels to Green Bay. Who do you got?
I'd love to say that I thought the Eagles had it together enough to be able to go to Lambeau and stick with the Packers, but I just don't see it happening. I said last week that there's just no evidence that this team, especially offensively, defensively they're okay, but offensively they just have no game plan, and it just never seems like they're prepared. We saw that again on Monday night, and as we saw the night before, the Packers are a team that will take advantage when you make mistakes. And no one makes more mistakes than Carson Wentz and the Eagles offense right now. They're going to turn the ball over. It's just a matter of how many times. And Aaron Rodgers is going to take advantage and put up points. So I envision the Packers creating those turnovers, turning those turnovers into touchdowns, and covering the spread.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where to start. Why don't we start with Carson Wentz, who I don't know if he needs an intervention or an exorcism or just a timeout. He needs help. He needs something. You mentioned.
Well, he's not getting any coaching help. I mean, you got to help a guy out. They're not doing that.
Yeah, and I don't know really who they're helping out in terms of the coaching. In terms of him, leads the NFL in turnovers, leads the NFL in interceptions with 15, leads the NFL in sacks with 46. Not great. And really just pulling him for like 2 or 3 plays. I mean, I shouldn't say pulling him because he's clearly the starter. But giving Jalen Ramsey these random plays now with Carson not on the field, before it was with Carson on the field, to me, I'm not really sure what that does. It's not really getting Jalen Ramsey any meaningful reps to evaluate or to get him better, or to give the team a boost. It's not really giving Carson confidence or the ability to work through his struggles. So I'm not sure what they're doing, but they're certainly, I think, not putting enough talent around him. Much was made about the fact that the Packers, didn't go for broke and get Aaron Rodgers more offensive help, specifically wide receivers. I could say Philly, and certainly could have gotten more receivers and really got the right ones. They could have had DK Metcalf. They didn't have him. Since 2013, they drafted one Pro Bowler. Philly has. That Pro Bowler is Carson Wentz, right? Like he hasn't had much help, and so the disparity in the handling of the quarterbacks, I was really, really, somewhat shocked to see Aaron Rodgers like bro hugging his offensive staff, mid-game when there's supposedly, a rift. And I was surprised to see that like Carson Wentz was, in a way thrown to the wolves in his game. So yeah, the disparity in how the QBs have been handled and the talent around them, I think Green Bay, wins this big time. All right. A QB that was a star trying to hold on to that stardom, and a QB that is a star in the making. The New England Patriots and Cam Newton go to the Los Angeles Chargers in Justin Herbert, and this one's a pick 'em. It's your choice. Started at 2.5, now is even. Who do you like in this one?
As is the case with most Chargers games, it often comes down to the coaching matchup, and I think we have one of the I don't want to call Anthony Lynn a bad coach, but a bad decision-making coach, especially in tight moments, important moments. So maybe that makes him a bad coach against, the best. Bill Belichick is the best. And so when it comes to a game with no spread, it's a pick 'em. I have to go with Belichick over Lynn here, because as good as Justin Herbert has been, as explosive as that offense has looked at times, they're still losing football games. And that comes down to coaching. I think Belichick and the Patriots, they have a chance. They're still alive in the playoff race. Despite being 1-4 on the road, I like them to be able to go into Los Angeles and get a win over a team that just isn't ready to be a contender yet with the coaching staff that they have. So give me Belichick and the Patriots here.
Yeah, I'll take Belichick as well. The Chargers' specialty is losing games really, really close. And so I think this is probably going to happen again. So if it's even, give me the Patriots. Like, Patriots are the bad guy in the movie that, you think is dead, but all of a sudden, like, get some strength after they've been shot a couple times.
That's an
And
amazing
makes like
analogy. That's bang on.
isn't that them? And they make
Yeah.
like the mad dash for like for the gun that was left on the floor. Like, that's who they are. And all of a sudden they're 5-6. The Bills certainly have not run away and hidden with the AFC East. Like, we're still not 100% sure who the Dolphins are and really how healthy their quarterback scenario is. And with an expanded playoffs, I think anything is on the table. So I see the Patriots making a mad dash to get into the conversation and maybe just stay relevant long enough for Julian Edelman to get healthy and make things really interesting down the stretch. I think we know a team, if they're not going to have the number one seed in the playoff, they're certainly going to have a home date, and that would be the Kansas City Chiefs, who took one of the best teams in football in Tampa Bay and made it look, for the first half of football, like they were playing on air. They get to host a team who last week had a quarterback who hadn't had any reps on air in the NFL to start that week. And the Chiefs obviously have a quarterback that is worth $500 million. And I think it's actually a hometown discount.
Yeah, seriously.
Which is why we have a 14 point spread right now with the Chiefs at home. Obviously, we don't know what Denver quarterback is going to be able to play, will or won't be wearing a mask, what the contract tracing might look like. But I'm not entirely sure how much that'll matter. Is this line too big?
There's a lot in this game telling me to go with the Chiefs, including that 43-16 whooping that KC put on the Broncos in Denver in late October. But I'm actually going to take the Broncos here. The Chiefs have been favored, obviously, in every game they've been this season. And early on in the season, they took advantage of it. They covered most of those spreads over the first 2 months. But they haven't covered any spreads in the last 3 weeks, including a 3.5-point spread over the Bucs last weekend. And there's no evidence to back this up, but I feel like because of the quarterback situation that you talked about last week, I think the Broncos are going to come into this game with a chip on their shoulder, including the quarterback. It sounds like it's going to be Drew Lock. They've all been activated off the COVID list. So I'm going to take the Broncos. I don't like the big spread, and the Chiefs haven't been covering in some, so that's where I'm going to go. Yeah,
I think, what felt like a 14-point game against the Buccaneers ended up being a tight game.
Yeah.
The Chiefs certainly called the dogs off a little bit, but I think the Buccaneers have a lot of talent, specifically offensively, and we're able to get on the same page. I don't think the Denver Broncos have a lot of talent offensively, and I don't think it matters who the quarterback is going to be because, what does getting on the same page mean? Like turning around and handing it to the running backs 35 times and hoping that they keep the Chiefs offense off the field? Like, that's literally the recipe to make sure you don't lose by bigger margin than 14. And so for that reason, I will go with the Chiefs. This is probably the most risky pick I'll pick this week, but I'll bet on Patrick Mahomes over quarterback to be named later.
Never a bad bet.
Yeah, I got the Chiefs. Mm-hmm. Another big spread, another two teams, vastly different scenarios. Pittsburgh looks to stay undefeated, but they also look to win comfortably, and they're going to have to do it by 10 or more if they want to cover this week as they host the Washington football team to be named at some point in what is scheduled at the time of taping this for everybody's favorite time, the 5 p.m. Eastern kickoff. You throw the records out when the two teams are playing right before dinner time. So who do you have in this super random, what is currently scheduled for Monday Nighter?
Yes, the Steelers have been good. Obviously, they're 10-0, but they've also been good against the spread. They've been a team that has consistently covered. But Washington brings to this game one of the league's best defenses and probably one of the league's least talked about defenses. Football Outsiders has Washington ranked as their fifth most efficient defense in their DVOA rankings. And I think that's something that people aren't really talking about a lot. And when it comes to the Steelers, they're undefeated, obviously, but those kinds of streaks, teams play with those kinds of streaks late in the season. They play in a bunch of games that are way closer than they probably would have been early on in the season. And so for that reason, I'm going to take Washington. I'm going consistently against the double-digit spreads this week, and I'm going to ride that because I think this ends up being a lot closer than a lot of people think.
In full disclosure, we are taping this before the Steelers take on the Ravens in a Wednesday nighter.
True, yeah.
Schedule. So we are saying the Steelers are 10-0, and I'm going to assume that they're going to be 11-0 by the time they play Washington. But no matter the case, I'm taking the Steelers to win comfortably. In fact, I'd actually be a little bit more bullish in taking the Steelers if somehow a previous quarterback of the Washington football team, RG3, is able to upset them with Baltimore. But no matter, in a very random matchup late in the year, I like the Steelers to cover the 10-point spread. So again, this is so 2020 where we have all of these random factors in what is supposed to be the double dip on a Monday nighter. Buffalo going to San Francisco, which again seemed like a much more interesting Monday nighter at the beginning of the year than it does now. But San Francisco has been pretty frisky of late. But we also have to factor in that this is going to be played at a neutral site. This is going to be played in Arizona because San Fran can't play at home for the next couple weeks due to the local COVID-19 protocols in Santa Clara County. I don't know how much of that impacts the line at all. It has currently Buffalo favored by 2.5 points. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, that's all interesting, and I think that does play a factor. I mean, I know that home field advantage hasn't really been the impactful factor that it has been in years past for obvious reasons. But I'd always think about taking a home underdog in a situation like this, two teams that could play each other close conceivably. But now going to a neutral venue, it takes any of that away. But the reason I think I'm going to take the Bills is because we saw really an improved defensive effort last week in a really tough matchup against the Chargers offense that had been rolling. The Bills defense hadn't been great. They played better, and that's a really good sign going into this game and the playoffs. I will say, if they turn the ball over a lot like they did against the Chargers, they're going to be in trouble. San Francisco will take advantage of that. But I do think the Bills overall are the better team, and I think they can beat the 49ers on a neutral field, like you said, by at least a field goal.
Yeah, I'm actually going to take the Niners, and I was leaning Bills, and maybe it's just the recency bias of the fact that the Niners ruined my Survivor pick a week ago. But I think these Niners aren't the Niners that we've seen. Yes, Nick Mullins is still unremarkable at quarterback, but with Deebo Samuel back in the lineup, with Moser back in the backfield, you've got a little bit more pop offensively. And so I'll take the Niners to keep this one close, and I'll ride another underdog. So an underdog I will not be riding is the Dallas Cowboys. I don't care who it happens to be the quarterback, whether Lamar Jackson is cleared to play by then, which we don't expect given the comp of how long players, specifically quarterbacks, have been held out of action after they've got COVID-19, whether the backfield is back healthy, both physically and obviously with the COVID-19 virus. None of that matters. In fact, even if RG3, a Texas boy, is playing quarterback, it would just make sense that one of the many Texas quarterbacks comes back and has a big day against a Texas team in Dallas. I'm just going to cede all my time to you. I'm picking the Ravens. They host the Cowboys. They're 7-point favorites. Who do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Ravens too. It's not really a tough decision for me. I mean, obviously, we hope Lamar Jackson is able to come back and J.K. Dobbins and Ingram, that they're all healthy for this game as the Ravens try and make a push for the playoffs that they desperately need. This is a great matchup for them, specifically for the defense. I think the Ravens defense is going to be able to handle that putrid Cowboys offense pretty easily, especially given all the offensive line troubles the Cowboys are having right now. It's really, I guess I'd think twice about it, knowing what RG3 looks like and if he's going to play this game. But we don't have that advantage. So at this point in time, I'm going to take the Ravens. I still feel pretty good about it, like you said, regardless of who plays in this game.
Yeah, and so that takes us to Survivor. And I'm out of Survivor. I mean, many of you, let's be honest, are out of Survivor as well.
I've been out since week one. Like I literally bought back in, but
right.
like the Jags did me in months ago.
Yeah, and there's some late year Survivor leagues that start in around week 6, or I've seen one as late as week 11. So you could be alive, and so we'll give you a team to think of if you're still alive originally, or if you're in a new league. Who you got this week, Gio?
Yeah, this is an interesting week because there aren't many slam dunks in my opinion. But I think one that if you wanted to be a little sneaky and pick a team you might normally not think of picking, I think it would be the Vikings, who are playing a Jags team that just isn't really a team that is going to be a contender in any game. So lean Vikings, but there are lots of I like Ravens, I like Chiefs, I like Packers. You go with a sure thing if you've got those options, but if you don't, I'd lean Vikings.
Yeah, I was going to say Dolphins. They are hosting the Bengals. I like to take a team at home, and although I think the Bengals could cover, I think the Dolphins ultimately will win. But generally, I like to keep those AFC East teams available so that I can pick them when they're playing the Jets. So I'm just going to mix it up, and that's right. I'm going to pick a team who happens to be playing the Jets. I'm going to take the Las Vegas Raiders in Survivor. I think they will bounce back and get a win against a team that I don't expect to get a win in this year. That's it from us. Let us know what you think, who you got, who you like. Are you still alive in Survivor? If so, shout out to you. You should probably be giving us some advice. But most importantly, enjoy the games, no matter when they come this week. Enjoy watching them and enjoy the bets that you make around them.